Hydrogen sits in a strange place in the energy transition. It is talked about constantly, funded aggressively, debated endlessly, and yet quietly dismissed in the same breath. You will hear that hydrogen is the fuel of the future and moments later that it will never scale. Both statements are usually delivered with confidence. Both are incomplete. The truth is more uncomfortable, more nuanced, and far more important to understand. Hydrogen will not scale in the way most people imagine. And yet it still matters deeply, not as a universal solution, but as a system stabilizer, a hedge, and a pressure release mechanism inside an increasingly stressed energy world. To understand why hydrogen will not scale, you have to stop thinking in slogans and start thinking in systems. Hydrogen is not failing because the chemistry is wrong. Electrochemistry is elegant. Splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen works. Fuel cells convert hydrogen back into electricity efficiently at the point of use. None of this is controversial. The problem appears when hydrogen is embedded into a real-world energy system with grids, capital markets, utilization constraints, and physical infrastructure limits. This is where the story changes. The first and most fundamental reason hydrogen will not scale broadly is energy loss. Hydrogen is not an energy source, it is an energy carrier. That distinction matters more than almost any other. To make hydrogen, you must first generate electricity, then convert that electricity into chemical energy through electrolysis. That conversion alone introduces losses. Then the hydrogen must be compressed, liquefied, transported, stored, or converted into derivatives like ammonia or methanol. Each step adds more losses. Finally, the hydrogen is converted back into electricity, heat, or mechanical work, adding yet another loss. When you stack these inefficiencies together, the round-trip efficiency collapses compared to simply using electricity directly. This is not a matter of marginal optimization. Even with optimistic assumptions, hydrogen pathways lose a large portion of the original energy. Batteries, wires, and direct electrification win overwhelmingly wherever they are technically feasible. That is why hydrogen struggles so badly in passenger cars, residential heating, and short-duration grid balancing. These use cases already have high-efficiency alternatives that require no chemical detour. Hydrogen is trying to compete where it is structurally disadvantaged. The second reason hydrogen will not scale is infrastructure friction. Electricity benefits from a century of infrastructure build-out. Grids, substations, transformers, standards, codes, and trained workforces already exist. Even EV charging largely piggybacks on this system. Hydrogen does not. Hydrogen requires new pipelines or expensive retrofits, specialized compressors, high-pressure storage, liquefaction facilities, safety systems, sensors, and regulatory frameworks. None of this scales cheaply or quickly. Hydrogen infrastructure is also unforgiving. Leaks are harder to detect. Materials compatibility matters. Embrittlement is real. Safety setbacks create long delays. Public acceptance is fragile. Unlike adding solar panels or chargers, hydrogen infrastructure cannot be rolled out incrementally without significant upfront coordination. This creates a chicken and egg problem that slows deployment and raises costs. Scaling hydrogen is not just about building more equipment. It is about building an entirely parallel energy system. The third constraint is utilization economics, and this is where many hydrogen projects quietly fail. Electrolyzers are capital-intensive assets. Their economics depend heavily on how many hours per year they operate. High utilization spreads fixed costs over more kilograms of hydrogen, lowering the cost per unit. The problem is that green hydrogen is typically paired with renewable power, which is intermittent by nature. Wind and solar do not run on demand. They run when weather allows. Grid congestion makes this worse. In many regions, renewable power cannot always reach electrolyzers due to transmission constraints. Curtailment becomes common. Electrolyzers sit idle not because the technology is broken, but because the system cannot deliver power when it is needed. Low utilization kills project economics long before efficiency improvements can save them. This is not a technology failure, it is a system mismatch. The fourth reason hydrogen will not scale broadly is capital reality. Hydrogen projects stack multiple risks on top of each other. There is power price risk because electricity is the dominant cost input. There is utilization risk because electrolyzers depend on high operating hours. There is offtake risk because hydrogen demand is often uncertain or price-sensitive. There is policy risk because subsidies and incentives frequently underpin project economics. And there is integration risk because hydrogen projects touch many parts of the energy system at once. When capital is abundant and policy support is strong, these risks can be tolerated. When capital tightens or policy shifts, hydrogen becomes fragile. Investors are not rejecting hydrogen because they do not understand it. They are rejecting it because the margin for error is thin. Projects that rely on perfect conditions rarely survive real-world stress. Taken together, these factors explain why hydrogen will not scale as a general-purpose energy carrier. It is inefficient compared to direct electrification. It requires parallel infrastructure. It suffers from utilization challenges. It is capital-intensive and risk-stacked. If hydrogen were competing on a level playing field for everyday energy use, it would lose almost everywhere. And yet, hydrogen still matters. It matters because energy systems do not operate under ideal conditions. They operate under constraints, shocks, and stress. The mistake most people make is evaluating hydrogen only under calm scenarios where grids are strong, capital is cheap, and demand is predictable. Under those conditions, hydrogen looks unnecessary. But energy transitions do not fail in calm conditions. They fail when assumptions break. Hydrogen matters where electrons stop working. There are parts of the economy that electricity struggles to serve effectively, even in theory. High-temperature industrial processes are one example. Steelmaking, cement production, glass manufacturing, and certain chemical reactions require temperatures and process characteristics that are difficult or expensive to achieve with electricity alone. Hydrogen as a combustible or reactive gas fits naturally into these processes in ways electrons do not. Hydrogen also matters as a chemical feedstock. In refining ammonia production, methanol synthesis, and other chemical pathways, hydrogen is not just energy, it is an input. Batteries cannot replace molecules. Direct electrification cannot substitute chemistry. Decarbonizing these sectors requires low-carbon hydrogen, regardless of its inefficiencies. Another domain where hydrogen matters is long-duration and seasonal storage. Batteries are excellent for short-duration storage measured in hours. They struggle economically when storage stretches into days, weeks, or months. Seasonal mismatches between energy supply and demand cannot be solved by lithium-ion alone without enormous cost. Hydrogen, despite its inefficiency, can store large amounts of energy over long periods with relatively low marginal cost. In this role, hydrogen competes not with batteries, but with the absence of storage altogether. Hydrogen also matters for energy security and resilience. Unlike electricity, hydrogen can be stockpiled independently of the grid. It can be stored underground, transported, and held in reserve. For critical infrastructure, remote operations, or backup power where grid reliability cannot be guaranteed, hydrogen provides a form of optionality that electrons alone cannot offer. Hydrogen also functions as a pressure release valve for the grid. As renewable penetration increases, grids experience periods of surplus generation that cannot be absorbed due to transmission limits or demand patterns. Curtailment becomes common. Hydrogen offers a way to convert excess electricity into a storable, transportable commodity. This is inefficient, yes, but inefficiency is sometimes cheaper than wasted energy or massive grid rebuilds. This is where the hydrogen debate often goes wrong. People fixate on efficiency as the primary metric. Efficiency matters, but it is not the only metric that determines system value. Sometimes the choice is not between an efficient option and an inefficient one. It is between an inefficient option and no option at all. Hydrogen also functions as a hedge against future uncertainty. Energy demand is not static. AI, data centers, industrial electrification, and geopolitical shocks are placing new strains on power systems. Grid expansion is slow, permitting is difficult, material constraints are real. Hydrogen provides a flexible outlet for energy when systems become overloaded or constrained. It is not the first choice. It is the fallback that prevents failure. This leads to the real misunderstanding at the heart of the hydrogen debate. Hydrogen is not trying to win the energy transition. It is not trying to replace batteries, EVs, or direct electrification. It is trying to prevent systemic failure modes. It exists to serve the edges, the gaps, and the stress points where dominant technologies break down. Technologies that look inefficient or unnecessary during periods of abundance often become essential during periods of constraint. This is not unique to hydrogen. History is full of examples where redundancy and optionality mattered more than efficiency. Hydrogen's value lies in its ability to operate where other systems cannot. The future that makes sense for hydrogen is not one of ubiquity, it is one of concentration. Hydrogen will not be everywhere. It will be clustered around industrial hubs, ports, refineries, steel plants, fertilizer production, and energy-intensive corridors. It will be integrated tightly with demand. It will be boring, specialized, and heavily engineered. The projects that succeed will not be the ones with the biggest electrolyzers or the boldest marketing. They will be the ones with guaranteed offtake, high utilization, simple system design, and tolerance for inefficiency because alternatives are worse. They will be built where hydrogen is the least bad option, not where it is the most exciting one. This is why hydrogen keeps showing up in serious industrial plans even as consumer hype fades. Decision makers who operate large, complex systems understand that resilience matters. Optionality matters. Having a solution for edge cases matters. Hydrogen is not the hero of the energy transition. It is the insurance policy. And this is the part most discussions miss. If you want to understand where hydrogen actually survives, where it fails, and where it quietly becomes indispensable, you have to think like a system operator, not a technologist or a marketer. You have to ask what happens when utilization drops, when subsidies disappear, when grids stall, and when demand spikes unexpectedly. If you want to go deeper into that systems-level thinking, how hydrogen projects are evaluated under real-world stress, why most fail before final investment decision, and what separates viable projects from hype, that is exactly what we break down inside H2 Hub by Renee Energy. It's built for developers, consultants, and investors who want to understand hydrogen the way reality treats it, not the way headlines do. You'll find the link in the description. Hydrogen will not scale everywhere. It will not be cheap. It will not be simple, but it will remain essential precisely because it shows up where systems break, not where they are comfortable. That is why hydrogen still matters.